Hello and welcome to Radio Law. Today I'm going to address the question of the authorship of the New York Times op-ed, the one that begins, quote, "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration." I'm producing this piece under the banner of Radio Law and not on my Forensic Linguistics channel because not only does it concern legal questions, but also as a forensic linguist with an international reputation on questions of authorship, having given evidence in major civil and criminal cases over the last 20 years as an expert witness, I believe I'm uniquely qualified to comment on it. Having reviewed the op-ed closely, I'm going to talk about two questions. One, whether the op-ed was written by a high-ranking White House official, and two, whether Mike Pence is the author. In my opinion, the New York op-ed is, like so many of the classical political pamphlets throughout history, a fraud and a fabrication. The writer is not some high-ranking White House official, but most likely someone from the opposition party or with Democratic sympathies. I doubt this person is even a politician, but he or she does appear to be someone who is used to handling the written language on a daily basis, although I would describe the style as that of a literary dilettante as opposed to that of a professional writer. When you look at the content of the op-ed, it is almost totally generic. The author does not tell us anything new. We all know, quote, President Trump is facing a test to his presidency unlike any faced by a modern American. We all know that, quote, the special counsel looms large and that, quote, the country is bitterly divided over Mr. Trump's leadership. And we all know that, quote, his party might well lose the House to an opposition hell-bent on his downfall, unquote. Also phrases like, quote, many of his policies have already made America safer and more prosperous, and, quote, many of the senior officials, unquote, say nothing that is not already in the public domain. Now it is a hallmark of anonymous letters and anonymous pamphlets that the author claims to be part of a larger group. So we see that this author often refers to we and a group of people who supposedly oppose President from the inside. This habit of referring to a single person as a group is also something which occurs in ransom letters and political pamphleteers from the 18th century onwards. I also find spontaneous denials interesting. Example, quote, ours is not the popular resistance of the left, unquote. This is interesting because a political statement is usually about what a movement is, not what it is not. References to, quote, the health of our republic, unquote, our democratic institutions, and, quote, free minds, free markets, and free people, unquote, suggest the rhetoric of the left rephrased to sound as though it comes from the right. The phrase to, quote, reach across the aisle, unquote, also suggests conciliation and comity, though this, of course, is not the preserve of the left. Also, the author is clearly someone who enjoys language. Take, for example, the characterization of the president as, quote, impetuous, adversarial, petty, and ineffective. The alliterations in daily disbelief, cold comfort, and ridiculed as rivals. Putting the above points together, I suggest that whoever wrote this op-ed piece is definitely not a lawyer. Lawyers have a particular way of writing. It is sparse, devoid of literary touches, and thin on adjectives. And generally, adverbs of a descriptive nature are avoided. The op-ed author, in this case, writes like a literature major, not a lawyer. Moreover, I feel we should disregard the false friends such as Lodestar and First Principles. They are there as plants to lead us to believe that the author might be Vice President Pence or Secretary Mattis. Disregarding the idea of James Mattis as the author is completely absurd. He is a military man, not a person with pretensions to literary grandeur, and he is not given to rhetorical flights of fancy. I will now comment on the claim that Vice President Mike Pence is the author. I seriously doubt that Mike Pence is the author. He uses an entirely different register of vocabulary from the op-ed author. Mike Pence favours a down-to-earth way of expressing himself, using fairly basic modifiers such as these: absolutely, rarely, dramatically, frankly, truly, literally, deeply, and so on, while the op-ed article is less generic and more precise, using such expressions as diligently, clearly, fully, bitterly. Similarly, Mike Pence's adjectives are both generic and mundane: tremendous, confident, strong, dramatic, wonderful, incredible, great. They echo the types of adjectives favoured by the president. The op-ed piece operates on a completely different level, using adjectives such as safer, more prosperous, detrimental, repetitive, half-baked, ill-informed, reckless, impetuous, adversarial, petty, ineffective. Such adjectives actually have some content and are lexically richer than those Pence routinely uses, even though the piece itself is generic and vague. So as a result of these observations, I think the likely author of this piece is a fairly low-level individual, a person who may have an English literature background. This person may have UK associations given the spelling of dialogue, although other spellings, example honour, are standard American forms. I would not necessarily assume the author is a male. I doubt that this person is as close to the upper echelons of the White House as he or she makes out, and may not even be in the White House at all. So all in all, I consider this op-ed to be a complete fraud. Either some people within the New York Times are aware of this, or or that august journal has been completely duped. The op-ed author is a deep-throat wannabe, and both the administration and the opposition should just ignore this altogether. It is a tawdry effort, meriting zero credence, and deserves to be consigned to the trash can of history. It will neither win nor lose any political party any votes at all. Those involved in political discourse, including journalists of all persuasions, should rise above it and move on. Thank you for listening, and goodbye until next time.